Congratulations on your purchase of a high-quality Reveal product. As we travel into the expanding universe of technology, computer users like you refuse to be left behind. You've discovered you have the power to open your computer and transform it into the ultimate machine for your specific needs. Providing you with the products and the knowledge you require is the world leader in computer upgrade technology, Reveal. Reveal offers a wide range of products, including multimedia kits that transform your PC into a powerhouse of sight and sound using the latest in CD and audio technology. CD-ROM drives that let you access audio-visual CD programs for business, education, and entertainment, and come with popular titles. Hard drives which expand your PC's storage capacity and make it run fast. Coprocessors that let you finish your work up to 12 times quicker. Memory upgrades that speed up your computer and printer and let you use more fonts and run powerful programs. Handheld scanners that allow you to place text, photographs, and artwork into the documents of your choice. Tape backups for ultimate protection of the invaluable data on your hard drive. The sound effects family of sound cards, which give you all the amazing audio effects on today's programs and let you record your own soundtracks. Video cards for brilliant colors and Windows acceleration. Surge protection products that put the power controls to your entire system in a convenient desktop panel. Fax modems and modems so you can send and receive faxes or exchange huge amounts of data by phone worldwide. Data entry devices such as trackballs, mice, and keyboards with the standard clicker or tactile touch, plus many other exciting products. And just like the one you're about to install, each includes easy-to-follow instructions and toll-free support. Check out the entire line soon and reveal everything your computer's been missing.
Welcome to Reveal's installation video for your tape drive or floppy drive. The installation procedure for these drives is very similar because both mount into your computer the same way and both use your computer's floppy drive controller. They're also very easy to install. The only extra materials you need are a Phillips screwdriver and your computer owner's manual. Throughout your installation, check this manual for instructions that are specific to your computer. Now, this video is divided into two sections. At the end of each one, we'll go over the important points to remember. After that, stop the video and use the instructions in your Reveal manual and your owner's manual to perform the steps shown. Then start the video again to continue. Now, this will ensure that your installation goes as smoothly as possible. If you require any assistance, just call Reveal toll-free at 1-800-4REVEAL. Well, let's get started with your installation. To begin with, turn off the power to your computer, your monitor, and any other peripherals. Then discharge yourself of static electricity by touching one of the screws on the back of your computer. And make sure you do this frequently throughout your installation. Next, unplug your computer's power cord and system cables and remove everything from your work area except for your main computer. Then use your owner's manual to locate the screws that hold your computer's cover. Remove the screws and slide the cover off, being careful not to snag any of the cables inside. While your computer is opened, protect it from static electricity by not touching any of your internal components. When you can't avoid touching a component, handle it only by the edges like this. Now let's take a look at where you're going to mount your Reveal drive. If you purchased a 5¼ drive, you'll be mounting it in one of the 5¼ bays in the front of your computer right here. If you purchased a 3½ drive, you'll be using a 3½ bay, like this one here. Now, if you're installing Reveal's 3½ tape drive, you have another option. You can mount it into a 5¼ bay using this special bracket that comes with the drive. The procedure for attaching this bracket is simple. You just line up the 4-threaded holes on the drive with the mounting holes on the bracket and screw the bracket to the tape drive using the included screws. Then you mount the completed assembly into the bay using the same procedure you're about to see for 5¼ inch drives. And no matter what size drive you're mounting, make sure there's a matching opening for the bay on the computer cover before you decide which bay to use. On this computer, almost all of the bays can have matching openings. You just need to snap out these plastic plates. After you've decided where to mount your drive, the next step is to actually mount it. Now let's talk about how to do that in a 5¼ inch bay first. Do you remember how the entrance to my bottom 5¼ inch bay was covered? That cover is called a blanking port. Not all computers have blanking ports, but if one exists, it needs to be removed in order to access the bay. On this computer, you remove it by tapping on the solder joints with your screwdriver handle. Then you gently flex the blanking port until it comes free. The next step is to remove the tape drive or floppy drive from its bag. Remember to handle it only by the edges. Place your drive with its top side facing up on a clean surface. I'm going to mount the floppy drive first. If you're installing the tape drive, keep watching. The procedure is almost identical. Since this computer does not require any special mounting hardware, you simply slide the drive into the bay and align it so it extends beyond the bay, enough to be flush with the outside of the computer's cover. On this computer, we can use this 3½ inch drive as a guide. Next, in order to access the mounting holes on the sides of the bay in this computer, you need to temporarily remove the vertical bays on either side of the horizontal bays. Your drive comes with two types of mounting screws, regular and spacer. This computer requires that the spacer screws be used because the bay is slightly wider than the drive. Place two of the mounting screws through the holes in each side of the bay and screw them into the threaded holes in the drive. The same procedure is used to mount the 5¼ inch tape drive with one exception. After sliding in the drive and screwing it to the bay, you must attach the green grounding wire to your computer's chassis. On this computer, you can do that by replacing the left vertical bay and using the bay's lower mounting screw to attach the wire. Now, if you're installing the 3½ inch tape drive, there may not be a grounding wire that needs to be attached. Check your reveal manual to find out. There. Now both 5¼ inch drives are mounted, but not all computers have 5¼ inch bay mounting procedures like this one. Your owner's manual may tell you to install metal or plastic rails to your drive. Reveal includes a set of plastic rails with your drive, and if you need metal rails, they've probably been pre-installed in your mounting bays. If your computer uses rails, your installation would proceed like this. First, if you're using metal rails, you take out the retaining screws and slide the rails out. Then, whether you're installing the metal or plastic rails, you'd align them so the drive will protrude the correct distance from the bay, and fasten each rail to the drive with two of the included screws. Then you'd line up the rails with the grooves inside the bay and slide your drive in. The plastic rails usually just click into place, but the metal rails often need to be screwed to the bay. Well, that's all there is to 5¼ inch bay installations. Now, mounting a drive into a 3½ inch bay is even easier. Let's take a look at how this 3½ inch floppy drive was installed. You can see how the drive was simply screwed to the bay using these mounting holes. You often need to mount a drive to a 3½ inch bay while the bay is removed so you can access all these holes. And you already saw how this bay was removed. To replace it, you just slide the bay back in and screw it to the chassis with two screws. The procedure would be the same for the 3½ inch tape drive. Now remember that no matter where you're mounting your reveal drive, and whether it's a 3½ or a 5¼ inch drive, you need to check your owner's manual for instructions that are specific to your computer. Now once your tape drive or floppy drive is mounted, find the available connectors that lead from the power supply at the rear of your computer. Take one of the larger connectors, if you're installing a 5¼ inch drive, and take a smaller connector if you're installing a 3.5-inch drive. Then plug the connector into the 4-pin socket on the rear of your drive. Plugging in a power connector properly is easy because it's key to only plug in one way. Well, that concludes section 1. We'll stop here so you can work on your own installation. But first, let's go over a few important points to remember. Make sure your computer's power cords and cables are unplugged before you open it. Remember to discharge yourself of static electricity frequently during your installation. If you're installing the 5.25-inch tape drive, be sure to connect its grounding wire to your computer's chassis. And if you're installing the 3.5-inch tape drive, check your reveal manual for any grounding wire requirements. Now that your tape backup or floppy drive is mounted, you're ready to connect its data cable. While you're connecting your data cable, make sure it doesn't go over any metal bars like this one here. That way you won't pinch the cable between the bar and your computer's cover. Unlike the mounting procedure, the data cable connections for a tape backup and floppy drive are different. To save you time, we've divided this section into 2 parts. If you're installing the floppy drive, keep watching. If you're installing the tape drive, you can fast forward to the next part. To connect the floppy drive's data cable, you begin by finding the cable. It's plugged into your existing floppy drive. Here's what a typical one looks like. Like all floppy data cables, it's designed to connect up to 2 floppy drives to a computer. The connector on this end is for the A drive. You can identify it by the twist in the cable. The connector near the middle is for the B drive, and the remaining connector is plugged into the computer's floppy drive controller. To connect the 5.25-inch floppy drive to your data cable, just find the available connector and plug it into the drive's edge connector, right here. The connector is keyed so the cable will only plug in one way. Connecting the 3.5-inch floppy drive is slightly different. I'll unplug the data cable on this one to show you. As you can see, instead of an edge connector, the 3.5-inch drive has a pin connector. If you're adding the 3.5-inch drive to your system, you'll probably have an available female pin connector on your existing floppy drive data cable. You just plug the connector into the drive, being careful not to bend the metal pins. And make sure the colored stripe on the cable faces pin number 1 on the drive. The stripe may be faint as it is here. The location of pin number 1 is marked on the circuit board of the drive. Once your data cable is plugged into your new floppy drive, your installation is almost complete. To proceed, you can fast forward past the next segment. Now we're ready to make the data cable connections for the tape drive. Begin by finding the data cable that leads from the back of your floppy drive. If you have 2 floppy drives, they'll be connected to the same cable. Follow the cable to where its other end plugs into your computer. On this computer, it plugs into the large circuit board on the bottom called the motherboard. On some computers, the floppy data cable plugs into a smaller circuit board that's connected to the motherboard. Wherever your floppy data cable is plugged in, check to see which way its colored stripe is facing. You may have to look close to see the stripe. Then grasp the connector firmly and unplug the cable. Next, take the data cable that came with your tape drive and hold it by the female pin connector on the end that has this male pin connector next to it. Then plug the female connector into the computer. Into the same connector you removed your floppy drive's data cable from. And make sure the colored stripe is facing the direction you noted earlier. Next, pick up the end of your floppy drive's data cable that you just unplugged. If this connector has a plug in one of the holes like this, carefully remove the plug with a push pin. Then plug the cable into the male pin connector on your tape drive's data cable. Make sure the colored stripes on both cables are on the same side. Then take the remaining end of your tape drive's data cable and plug it into your tape drive. Now, if you installed the 5 1/4 inch tape drive, the cable will plug into an edge connector like this. The edge connector is keyed, so the cable will only plug in one way. Now, if you installed the 3 1/2 inch tape drive, you'll be plugging the cable into a pin connector. You must make sure the colored stripe on the data cable is facing pin number 1 on the drive, which is marked on the circuit board. After your data cable is plugged into your 3 1/2 or 5 1/4 inch tape drive, your cable connections are complete. Take a moment at this time to double check your connections and make sure all your cables are firmly seated. After that, it's time to replace your computer's cover. Just slide it on, being careful not to snag any of the cables inside, and gently slip the front of the cover over your drives. Next, replace the screws that hold the cover. Replace your keyboard and monitor. Reconnect your external cables and power cords, and turn your system on. Then you're just about done with your installation. If you installed a tape drive, all that remains is to install the system software. The Reveal manual gives you step-by-step instructions for this easy procedure. If you installed a floppy drive, follow the directions in your Reveal manual to make a simple change in your computer setup program. And that's all there is to it. Let's go over a few important points to remember while you're connecting your cables and closing your computer. Remember to route your cables under any metal bars inside your computer. If you will be plugging a cable into a pin connector, make sure the cable's colored stripe is facing pin number 1. And when you slide on your computer's cover, be careful not to snag any of the cables inside. Remember that complete directions for all the steps covered in this video are in your Reveal manual. Congratulations on your purchase and installation of a high-quality Reveal product. Remember that if you need any help, it's always just a toll-free call away at 1-800-4REVEAL. Goodbye now, and thanks for choosing Reveal.